Today I'm going to show you how to install this True Cool, nice and heavy duty transmission cooler. I'm going to replace the stock one that's on my 2010 Chevy Silverado that has 100,000 miles. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. I'm going to give you the part numbers that I used from Amazon so that you can quickly get this stuff delivered to your house. And here we go. What I'm going to show you now is how you remove these clips that attach this top piece to the car using a couple of screwdrivers. Hopefully make it easy for you. There are dedicated tools for this, but this is what I use when you got to work with what you got. I also use this recycled piece to hold all the pieces that I'm removing so I don't lose any of them. So you just take 2 screwdrivers into here and you just pop this piece up just like that and it'll pop up. And then what you can do is with your finger push the top piece over to the side and this thing will come right out on you. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove these 10mm nuts that you have, or should I say bolts, up here to begin to take the grill off. So this next piece takes a little bit of talent, but not that hard. You got to remove this clip that's down here. There's what appears to be 4 of them. You can see it right there. There's one over there. And so if you're not careful, you could actually end up breaking these. And what I found out what the easiest thing was to do is to come from behind, and there's some tabs, and while I pull with my left hand on the grill a little bit, and I squeeze here, this will pop out. But then to get to the next one, which is over here, I need someone, or you stick something over here to keep that one popped out. If not, it wants to go back in, and you just kind of work your way left to right. And again, you come from behind and you squeeze that piece that's down there, and then they will pop out on you. Now there's 2 more right here that I had forgot to mention, and these are just right underneath this area here. And you do the same procedure where you just pinch on them and pull. This does become easier if you have someone else who can help you pull on it while you are pinching that thing down. And then if you pull too hard, it kind of wants to bind up on you as you're pinching it out. So just take your time, and remember, the key is gentle pressure and this thing will come off. Now, one of the things you may not catch is after you remove those clips is you got to lift up just on this a little bit. There's also one on this way so that you can finally pull away. Okay, so the grill's been removed. You can see right there is the stock cooler, and then just for comparison's sake, there's that big old True Cool that's really going to help out that tranny. Nice comparison. So next we want to go ahead and take this clip off. I may have to unclip that because the new True Cool is going to slip inside of here. I'll show you what kind of brackets I end up making to make this happen. I'm also going to remove this right here. Now to remove these, you can stick a screwdriver in there. I actually just started prying and wiggling on this thing, just some firm pressure, and as you can see, it's basically working its way out. And sometimes when they get this far out, I just go ahead and cut it. That way it still leaves me a little of that stub so I can put it into another hole later. But right now, just some gentle persuasion, and that came out. And see how this one does? So as you can see there, same thing, just some gentle pressure. This will still work if I decide to move it to another hole in the general same location. I have no idea what this piece does, but we'll definitely put it around the same location. So what I'm going to do now is take off this little plastic cap. There's a little C-clip underneath there that I'll pull on, and that way this can just slide out this way. And this is a California car, so if you guys are in some of these states that have really cold climates, this part can be rusted, and even have to take the clip out, you end up still having to struggle getting those parts out because they're rusted up. So you can see it didn't take much to get that out, and you can just see the clip right there. So here I'm going to take the plastic cover that's on there. You can use a screwdriver. I'm going to use the same pick that I'm going to use to remove the little clip that's in here. So you got to kind of find where the clip starts, and then just start pushing it out, and then you can kind of figure out how this is going to go. And you can see it's starting to come out. I got it out a little bit. I'm going to use this screwdriver to finish pushing it off. Just be gentle with it, figure it out, and you can see how that clip will come out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and push this down. I'm going to wiggle it and pull down or push down so that we can pop it out of its seal. Okay, so in my case, because of how it's connected down here, it's not really going to want to wiggle down. Now I could go ahead and unclip these right here, but I think what I'm going to do instead is just remove this and remove that first, and that way it gives me more wiggle room. You can see I put a towel down there too, not a towel actually, a t-shirt, to collect some of the oil from when I break these lines, and that way it doesn't get all over the car and actually make the cleanup just a little bit easier. Okay, so now that I got that stock transmission cooler out, you can see a real side-by-side comparison and just how much nicer and beefier this transmission cooler is. Now while I'm working on it, I put these little caps on here that I saved from other projects to keep any contamination from going into the lines while I'm working on this, cutting the lines or anything like that. So you can see here how I was able to slip in through the passenger side of the car this way, the tranny cooler, real carefully and slowly, so it does fit in that location. And so now I'm gonna have to work on brackets, but by having it in there, kind of gives me an idea what my brackets are going to look like that I need to make. So on this particular model, I'm going to get this bracket and I'm actually going to flip it so that this isn't sticking out, and it'll allow the new cooler to sit flush on here. So I'm going to cut these welds out, flip it. Just going to drill some screws in here, or I might weld it back in. And so to cut it out, I'm just going to use like my electric rechargeable Makita to cut those out, and we'll be good. Just some quick slicing, and you can see how that just begins to come off. I'm going to just cut across here just a little bit more, and it'll be right off in just a moment. I don't think it took me longer than 45 seconds of cutting. So now that I got that cut out and it's loose on both sides, I just got to knock these out right here so that I can flip this piece. So in my situation, because I wanted to use what I had, so the existing cross member, I'm going to end up punching these nuts out that are kind of like spot welded, and then flip them over to the other side. So here's those nuts punched out that I'm going to put on the back side of where they originally were. One of the other things I ended up doing was beating these down, because these are kind of punched through from when they make it, and now that I flipped it around, I actually need this to be as flat as possible for this side, as you can see. So I ended up just beating it down with my nice little trusty sledge, and it ended up doing that for me. And there's those nuts that are now going to go on the back side of where they used to be. Okay, so I got that bracket flipped, and what I ended up doing is using a rivet to hold this back on, and the bracket's been flipped. I used those nuts that I punched out on the back side. You know, I could have just switched them up with any nut and bolt. If that's easier for you, that's fine. On some of the other earlier model Chevys, there's actually a screw right here, and you could screw that off and flip it. You'll see that on the earlier models, but on this one, obviously it was welded on, and I ended up having to do that. And what I love about it, so far it's looking kind of factory. We'll see how long we can keep it that way. All right, I want to keep this kind of factory looking, and what I did is ended up using these GM connectors that the factory lines can just clip in, and I'm going to put them inside of here, and that should work out kind of nice. So for the cooler to be mounted on the bottom, I ended up using hardware that looks like this. I did not need to drill any holes into the bracket, because it just happened to be that there was holes in the exact spot that I needed. Okay, so what we're looking at now is I was able to get the factory fitting by gently bending it, twisting it, and aligning it. No sharp kinks. You got to be real careful as you're bending it to come over and then fit over here. I did have to pull out this rubber because the rubber inhibited me from being able to get to it and making those bends, but I got nice smooth bends and I got a straight, nice connection into that from the factory. And then what I'm going to do over here is over here I can't bend as much, and if I do, there's other issues that come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this with this pipe cutter so I get a nice smooth cut. You do not use a saw for this. I clean the area that I'm going to cut, and I'm going to actually end up rotating this with a coupling that I have, and I'll show you that coupling later. All right, so there's the piece that's been cut, a nice cut. There's the 3/8 coupling that I'm going to use to connect back to there, and then be able to rotate this where I needed to so that I'm not bending the lines too much and get a little bit better fit, and pretty much using the factory fittings and hoses. All right, so before I get this rubber part mounted back on, I wanted to show you how that 3/8 union allowed me to rotate that around and just have more flexibility to use this original factory line, and again the other line, which is just some gentle persuasion again, allowed me to connect it using pretty much all factory stuff, which is really badass. So from the kit I got, it comes with these brackets. They're longer. I went and bent it so that it just ends up fitting right in there and into that hole right there, and I'm going to put a rivet there. You can see this one, it's already done over here, nice and clean and short. Ran a rivet right there, but I'm running a nut and bolt right here. All right, here she is, all installed. All the electrical connections back together too. There's that one up there. Factory type connection there. Slightly modified to have a factory connection here. And we're all set. Now I'm gonna run it, see if there's any leaks. No leaks, I will put the grill back on. So there you have it. We got the True Cool, which is now under the Dana packaging, heavy duty trans cooler installed. I took it for a run. She ran just great. Now I'll be able to go tow with it, and now I got that extra protection from the cooling, and hopefully not break down on the road. So please note that I did put the links with Amazon for the part numbers for the transmission cooler, for the coupler, and then also for the additional fittings so that your original lines can just pop back in. Really appreciate you guys' support. If you use those links, I get a little bit of kickback on that, obviously from Amazon. And this installation, I bought everything that you see here, and I hope I've made it easy for you guys to do it for yourselves.